The execution of Dietrich Bonhoeffer was marked for April 9, 1945, a German legend who stood in the face of Hitler's tyrannical reign. He was a theologian, pastor, and anti-Nazi dissident who was killed at the Flossenbürg concentration camp. Bonhoeffer's execution happened just a few weeks before World War II ended. It showed his brave fight for justice and his willingness to risk everything to oppose Adolf Hitler's rule. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was born on February 4, 1906, in Breslau, Germany, now Wrocław, Poland. His dad, Karl Bonhoeffer, was a famous brain doctor. Dietrich grew up with many brothers and sisters, 7 to be exact, in a very scientific and Christian family. Bonhoeffer really wanted to be a priest, and that's why he went to school to learn theology at Tübingen and Berlin. By the time he was 21, he already had a degree. He was incredibly smart and ended up teaching at the University of Berlin, where he gave really interesting lectures that lots of students liked. His early writing, such as Sanctorum Communio, was the start of his later books about God. As the Nazi Party gained power, Bonhoeffer got really worried about how many people hated Jews and were too nationalistic in Germany. He joined the underground Confessing Church, which stood against the Nazi government's grip on German Protestant churches. His involvement with the Confessing Church proved how much he was dedicated to fighting unfairness and backing those who were suffering, even though it was risky. Bonhoeffer's Christian principles were completely against Nazism. He joined the German resistance, participating in plans to overthrow Hitler, leading to his arrest and imprisonment. Despite harsh conditions, he continued to write and inspire others with his strong faith and moral beliefs. He's remembered as a martyr and a symbol of resistance. In the 1930s, when the Nazis started mistreating Jews and dissenters, Dietrich Bonhoeffer became crucial in the German church's resistance. His strong belief in fairness and religion made him stand out. In 1935, when the Nuremberg laws stripped Jews of their rights, he opposed them, believing they contradicted the gospel. He spoke and wrote to encourage Christians to stand against Nazi cruelty. Bonhoeffer led underground seminaries, training ministers for the Confessing Church. These secret seminars preserved a Christian doctrine against Nazi ideas. He urged future pastors to resist Nazi changes to religious teachings. Only those who obey God's commands will enter the kingdom of heaven became the Confessing Church's slogan, promoting civil disobedience against the Nazis. In 1938, the Gestapo tried to close the Confessing Church's seminaries, forcing Bonhoeffer and his students to escape to Sigurdshof, where he continued training Christians to oppose Nazism. This period of persecution strengthened his resolve. He wrote several famous works, including The Cost of Discipleship, criticizing complacent German Christianity and emphasizing active resistance and sacrifice. Bonhoeffer's defense of Jews and resistance to Nazi oppression made him a Gestapo target. In 1937, his passport was canceled, restricting his travel. Despite the danger, he continued his efforts, driven by strong moral convictions. In early 1939, facing arrest, Bonhoeffer left Germany for the Union Theological Seminary in New York, hoping to gain international support for the resistance. Despite being urged by friends and family to stay safe in the United States, Bonhoeffer felt a strong need to return to Germany and continue his underground resistance. He could not ignore the moral and ethical crisis in his homeland. His deep sense of duty and faith drove him back. By 1941, he was involved in the German resistance's efforts to stop Adolf Hitler, including plans to assassinate him. His commitment was more than patriotism. It was a spiritual mission to fight against tyranny and protect the innocent, even if it meant risking his own life. Bonhoeffer worked as a courier for the resistance, traveling secretly between groups and building international contacts to overthrow the Nazi regime. This dangerous work required great courage and careful planning. Any mistake could lead to his capture and execution. He saw the deportation of Jews and the suffering in the ghettos firsthand, which strengthened his resolve to fight against the Third Reich. Besides his active role, Bonhoeffer also played a spiritual and moral role, helping other conspirators keep their humanity and ethical values while planning to remove Hitler. His theological insights provided a moral framework that kept the group's resolve strong. Bonhoeffer's influence went beyond strategy. He offered comfort and guidance, reinforcing the ethical importance of their mission. In letters written during this time, Bonhoeffer struggled with the idea of taking a human life to stop the Holocaust. These letters show his deep internal conflict and careful ethical reasoning. He concluded that trying to assassinate Hitler was morally justified and necessary to end the mass murder. This conviction came from deep theological reflection and a strong commitment to justice and human dignity. There is no other way to oppose evil than to become guilty of it to some degree, Bonhoeffer wrote. The ultimate question for the responsible person is, how can Christ's message best be defended and preserved from being distorted? Despite being careful, the Gestapo eventually caught on to Bonhoeffer's anti-Nazi activities. In April 1943, they nabbed him at his family's place in Berlin and locked him up for his involvement in the plot. For the next 2 years, he got shuffled between different jails and concentration camps as the Nazis tried to break him and force a confession. His arrest was a big hit to the resistance crew since they relied on his guidance and moral leadership a lot. Bonhoeffer faced a tough time with all the Gestapo's scrutiny and relentless questioning, but he stayed firm in his opposition to the oppressive regime. Despite the hardships, Bonhoeffer stuck to his morals with courage and faith. Even from his cell, he penned down some of his most important works, like the essay After 10 Years and the book Letters and Papers from Prison. These writings weren't just about theology, they also brought hope and strength to those suffering under Nazi rule. His ability to keep his head clear and his spirit strong despite immense difficulty showed remarkable resilience and a strong commitment to his beliefs. As the Allied forces closed in and the Nazi regime began to fall apart, Hitler ordered the execution of all remaining resistors involved in the plot against him. On April 9, 1945, just before Germany surrendered, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was taken to Flossenburg concentration camp and hanged. It was a harsh and rushed execution, showing how desperate the Nazis were in their final days. Bonhoeffer's tragic death was a significant loss, as his courageous opposition to tyranny had made him a symbol of resistance and moral integrity. Throughout his ordeal, Bonhoeffer remained steadfast in denouncing injustice. His life and writings inspired Christians to actively oppose unfair treatment and stand up for those who were oppressed. His influence is still felt globally, reminding us of the importance of fighting for what is right, even in difficult times. Bonhoeffer's teachings and unwavering faith amidst adversity have had a lasting impact on Christian beliefs and our approach to social issues, motivating believers to live according to their principles with courage and compassion. In his final words to another prisoner, Bonhoeffer said, "This is the end. For me, the beginning of life." In the many years since he was executed, Dietrich Bonhoeffer has been remembered as one of the greatest martyrs and moral leaders of the 20th century. His brave and defiant story has inspired many Christians and shown the moral failures of the churches that supported the Nazis. Bonhoeffer's legacy focuses on his belief that being a Christian means standing with victims of injustice and oppression. His writings show that true Christianity cannot go along with the evils of racism, nationalism, and violence. He wrote, "We have been silent witnesses of evil deeds. The church must confess. She has witnessed the lawless application of brutal force, the spiritual, moral, and physical suffering of countless innocent people, and she has remained silent." Bonhoeffer's words remind us that the church must speak out against wrongdoings and support those who suffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer gave up his life fighting the worst crimes humanity has seen in modern times. He bravely stood against pure evil, inspiring believers and those with a conscience to fully embrace the tough consequences of their moral beliefs.